The opening of Juno starts with sound first and then fades into the shot. The opening is quite naturalistic, however animation and graphics that are used give it a more youthful kind of sense. The animation that is used is like a comic strip, which connotes like a teenage kind of film. There's also use of bright bold colours that suggest that the target audience is also young and youthful. The opening is quite simple and just follows the protagonist's daily journey. The credits roll on and appear smoothly, which keeps the theme simple and of normality, so it's a naturalistic feel. The sound used in Juno's opening is quite a traditional country song. It's about love, which kind of hints on it, the theme that's in Juno. It's about a teenage love story, but it also shows the kind of traditional values, and it's quite, country is quite like stereotypical for certain parts of America, which sets it in America. The sound is quite a slow pace, but it goes along well with the daily journey. Like during the soundtrack that's used, it refers to woods when the protagonist is walking through the woods, which shows a link between the sound used and what the actual visuals are showing. The sound is actually quite old, considering the film is for a youthful audience, which could also show kind of a theme of maturity in it, or of like old values. The sound is asynchronous and flows with graphic movements, which helps create a kind of well put together flowing opening which would engage with the audience. The sound isn't well known, so this shows that it could be an indie alternative kind of movie because it's quite different. It's not a popular type of music, which shows that this film could actually have quite a niche audience. The sound doesn't really have any tension or suspense in it. It's quite flowing and gives that kind of feel of normality, like just going about your day-to-day walk or whatever. It doesn't really hint at anything going on apart from the actual lyrics in the song that refer to like love. The whole mise-en-scene for the Juno opening is all related to the kind of teenage genre. Like the comic strip gives it that sense of like youthfulness and like a flowing kind of journey. There's also items in the animation that refer to like a youthfulness, like the drawings like that of the houses are filled in with square paper, which is kind of refers to a school or a college. You can also see TVs, guitars, we have some Converses, which kind of we all connote with a sense of youth. There's also images such as the birds flying and the actual whole concept of her walking by herself that also represents like a freedom or a want to be free, which kind of shows like the rebellion side of teenagers. There's a regular theme throughout the whole of the opening of Juno that all links to teenage things basically. There's one shot during the opening where we see the protagonist next to a nails salon. This is kind of showing a binary opposite, as the protagonist is a female but she's dressed quite manly or tomboy like. It could be kind of a play on, or like they're kind of taking the mickey out of the protagonist. The colours in the opening of Juno are all quite bright and they all connote youth and happiness. However, in comparison to this, like the background images of like the housings and the actual setting and location are quite plain. Alongside this is like the actual character. She's dressed quite manly and plain. She's seen as a plain person, like not doing anything out of the ordinary, which is quite boring. So we don't really know why this engages with the audience, but all of the colours and the hints at like the theme engage them, like keep the audience attracted. Within the opening we also see some stereotypical kind of teenage American college, high school kind of things, such as the football players running along in the sports kit, which is kind of stereotypical to the usual teenage American high school films you usually see. The animation and backdrops move before the character. They set the scene before she carries on walking. It's like that she's just going with what is happening in this town that she lives in. The end shot that we see when the colour and the kind of realistic sense comes back is when the teenage protagonist is entering a shop or a cafe that has massively printed on the windows drugs, which again connotes the whole rebellion teen kind of thing. The whole opening, basically, the mise-en-scene is adding up to try and show the kind of ordinary life that teenagers go through, as well as the side of rebellion within them. It's kind of keeping a normal, realistic feel, but the animation is kind of opposing this. It gives it that youthful feel. So like it attracts people through the animation because it's kind of it's a cool way of showing stuff, and it's quite like down with the kids or whatever. But then there's also different bits of like the drugs and like why is she drinking orange juice that all keep her engaged and they keep the enigma alive and want like have the audience wanting to watch more. In terms of editing, as the shot turns from reality into animation, it's kind of quite a slow process in like a fade kind of way, that they're like a crossover, so that slowly changes, bits are changing in the shot to animation and then continuing. The shots are quite flowing in the way that they move as well. There's not a lot of like editing, there's short cuts but not a lot of fades and stuff. It's just kind of crossing over, like the drawings around the protagonist are getting erased and then drew back again. They're setting the scene. There's not so much actual editing, it's quite continuously flowing through like you would a comic strip. The editing is basically relying on the whole of the animation. There's not much to be said about any other kind of things. The graphics are all hand drawn, which shows this kind of young childish theme. All the fonts are coloured in, and they are made to look like they're actually coloured in with like felt tip pens, again showing a childlike side. The actual opening is basically all animation and graphics related, apart from the movement of the protagonist where we see the face, but it's still kind of edited to look like a photo. The actual credits roll on after a movement of the protagonist or after a movement of something in the scene, so they kind of roll on and they fit quite well so that they kind of smoothly appear and smoothly disappear as well with the setting. In terms of camera angle, shots and movements, we as the audience are kind of observing the protagonist in her local area. We're kind of following her along the journey. There's not many interesting camera angles apart from point of views where we're witnessing what she's seeing around her, and there's also use of long shots and establishing shots that show us the setting. There's not many camera angles, to be fair, but this helps set the kind of simplistic normal feel that the director is trying to show. Mid shots and long shots are used to show the character and what they're wearing and how they're walking. The character walks quite slowly and like not with much confidence, which shows maybe a weakness or like self-confident issues. There's one shot used that's looking down upon the protagonist, again showing a weakness or that she's not as important as maybe she makes out to be, even though this is the main character. As well as this, the camera, there's always movement. The protagonist is constantly walking, and sometimes that the background is moving alongside them, so that it's always continuous. It's just never, it's kind of never ending, which is kind of the same thing that we were talking about before with the script, how it just keeps going. There are some kind of flips that are like rotations that also happen, that kind of used as transitions from one shot to another, which is quite a cool take on like how the camera's used, but it's mostly effects. There are a few shots used within the opening, but they're all quite simple to keep this feel simple. The only main thing that is used that attracts the audience is the sound and the animation, which gives it a kind of vintagey feel, again like signifying this alternative kind of indie genre. Enigma is created through this opening by the events happening around the protagonist. So we have the guitar, we have the running sportsman, and we also have the jug of Sunny D that she's drinking, which we don't quite understand why. This all keeps the audience wanting to watch on and find out the answers to these questions. Overall, the opening of Juno creates a quite simple, normal day-to-day life feel, but the animation and the colours and the songs that are used connote a youthful kind of alternative audience that they're trying to attract, but the opening is quite simple and it flows well, and the kind of hints at what the movie is going to be about keep the audience engaged and wanting them to watch on.